hours as well. So if you have anybody that you would like to send this information to that is not within the EXP Family Tree Workplace group, then you can certainly do that by sharing the YouTube link as well. So today we've got a great guest. We've had Maureen McGarry back on the call before. We have her back. We'll have her come back again this summer as she launches some new technology that we were just chatting about that will be very valuable to those of you that start working with or are already working with investors, saving you time, helping you be more of an expert and more maybe not only efficient and effective, but probably what is the word I'm looking for? Accurate because of technology, right? I mean, there's always room for human error. There's more when we're doing it manually than when we're using a technology. So for those of you that are watching that work with investors and struggle with the fact that you have hours of time analyzing property for them, this is going to be something down the road here that Maureen is going to have, to share with you. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and talk about how do you start talking to people about becoming an investor, eliminating and alleviating some of their fears around it, educating so that you can find investors in your community, in your database, in your sphere, in your social following, finding more opportunities in your database. We all need that today. And moving forward, I think in, the real estate economy of the future. And then Maureen's got some really cool things to share with you about how you can then service those clients at the highest level. And she said she has a magic trick. So I'm sticking around for that. So, woo. All right. So Maureen, I'm going to let you take it away. If you want to share screen, you can. If you don't need to, you don't have to, but you go ahead and give us what you got.
All right. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully this will go off without a hitch. And can you see where it says real estate magic? Okay, so I want to talk about a couple things today. And I'm going to start with showing you how to talk to people. And I'm not going to call them investors yet because they might just be people that you're that you know, or clients that you're already working with on certain real estate deals, or that you've worked with in the past that are not investors, but maybe would be great investors. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that's like, how to get them there, and then what you need to do as a realtor to kind of level up to work with investors. And then I'm going to show you a trick, and I'm going to give you some stuff. So anyways, let's get going. Oops, sorry, here, I gotta switch screens. Okay. So here's who I am. I've been in real estate for over 30 years. I am a broker. I'm currently in Minnesota, and I do buying and selling with investors mainly. I have a property management company that I oversee, and these are all of my different companies that are all related in the real estate field. And so I've got a good, strong background in working with investors. I've been doing that for years and years, and I'm also an investor myself. I also, as Cari talked about a little bit, I created a software that currently is in Minnesota, but will hopefully soon have some exciting news about other markets. And that's called Bluestream Analytics. And that is a software that I developed to alleviate the hours and hours that we spend as realtors self-analyzing or analyzing properties one by one. And so this will hopefully automate that for everybody once we get it up and out there. So I like speaking to groups. I've been on Cari's call before. I just was down in Branson. I did a conference that Jeremy Worley put on and spoke to his group about. And I've been selling and working with investors for so long. I really feel a strong need to educate other people in this profession to understand how to work with investors, how to help buyers and sellers that want to get into investing. And, so I want to serve you guys. So feel free at any point to ask questions, or always follow up with me after the call if you have questions or you want to dig deeper into something I talked about. So I want to start with you guys thinking about your business as a shop or as a store. How many items are you selling in your shop? And what if I told you that you could double or triple your inventory without having to go out and buy or spend a lot of money? So what does that mean? If the only product that you're offering in your shop right now is working with owner occupieds, either buying or selling, that's one product. you've got that sphere of influence that you have. Have you ever thought about expanding that and offering investments? So if you're not currently doing that, I'm going to give you some insight today so that you can start, because some people come into this idea and they think, oh, I got to go find all new investor clients and I got to come up with this whole new database of people. And I say, just start with who you have in your sphere of influence or in your database now, because some of the things I'm going to show you today will help you approach some of those people and potentially turn them into investors. So, again, if you're only working with owner occupied, you've only got one product in your shop. And let's talk about adding investors. So one of the things that, comes up first when you're talking about investors is, you're talking to somebody at a get together or whatever, and you say, have you ever thought about investing in real estate? And of course they have, well, yeah, but this happened, or my friends had this happen, or I'm worried about this or that. And so there's a lot of confusion and concerns that people have when they consider becoming an investor. And so I want to go through some tips to help you kind of combat those concerns or alleviate them. So let's talk first about property management. So you're talking to somebody and they say, I don't want to be a landlord. I don't know how to fix things. I don't know how to do that. Or I'm worried about what are the risks? What if they don't pay their rent? What if this happens? What if that happens? That's it's a common question. I get that all the time too. And you have to present yourself as first of all a professional. But the first thing that you have to tell them is, look, a lot of people are renting properties right now. This is a very common thing. And if you're not comfortable managing it yourself, you either have to do the research and learn it, or there are people who manage property for a living. And so that's where you want to start. You don't have to take all this on by yourself. And I think that's really important. Folks are often worried about tenant issues. I don't want to deal with tenants. I don't want to have, issues with tenants. I don't know how I would deal with them. The number one counter for that is good screening. Good screening of potential tenants will give you a good background on if they've been good tenants in the past, if they have the income to pay the rent and pay their other expenses. And it's really important that whoever is managing these properties has a good ability or has a firm grasp on how to run background checks. So again, that's critical to alleviating a lot of the tenant related issues, is being able to run a professional background check and know that you know exactly who's moving in and that this is their credit, this is their income, and you have to set those standards up ahead of time. What do I expect from a tenant coming in? Do they, I was talking to a client the other day and she said, she's a very experienced landlord. And she said, if you go in to get a mortgage, they only allow you to pay about a third of your income towards your mortgage. And so you maybe want to think about that with a tenant. If the rent is, let's just say for ease, $1,000, you probably want to see at least $3,000 in income, right? Because they're going to have other expenses too. And we don't want to be in a position where they can't afford to live where they are. Of course, obviously, remember to keep fair housing rules in mind. Maintenance and repairs is always something that homeowners or potential investors are worried about. What's going to happen if something breaks? Now, if you're at your house and your water heater goes out, and that's something that you don't replace every year, you replace it once every 15, 20 years, whatever, you're going to go and you're going to call a couple different companies and get a few different bids. And it's going to take some time to do that. But when you're managing property, you want to have that kind of done up front. You want to have vetted through a number of different professionals so that when you have a plumbing issue or an electrical issue or an appliance issue, you've got somebody sitting there ready to go that you've already either worked with, you've vetted them in terms of what their abilities are they licensed, can they pull permits, whatever that may be, and that they are ready to go. And so again, property managers, we do this. I have a list of all those people and multiples of all those people. And because of the amount of business I send them, I usually go to the top of the list. So if you're going to self-manage a property, you want to make sure that your uh, potential investor understands that, you want to start thinking about who am I going to call if there's a plumbing issue? Who am I going to call if there's a electrical issue? And start looking into some of those resources. Okay, so another concern that potential investors have is the financial risk. What if the property sits vacant, or what if um, you know expenses keep rising and the rental income doesn't cover the expenses? Well, now these are questions that you, as a realtor, if you're working with investors, you should be able to answer, because before they ever buy that property that they're going to be renting or going to be investing in, you want to make sure that it's set up for success. And that's where the whole analyzing the property ahead of time, making sure that you understand what the expenses are going to be, what the income is realistically going to be, that you've got, leases set up so that you've got time between tenants to find new tenants and try to get somebody in immediately. Today's the 1st of May. I have a lot of tenants moving in today and some still moving out from yesterday. But you want to be able to, ideally, somebody moves out, get somebody else in there right away. So you have to be able to understand up front before you purchase a property, what is the potential income and what are the potential benefits for this property. And I'm going to go into more of that later on in the discussion here today. But this is something that really comes up as the realtor's responsibility to help them understand what they're looking at before they buy it. Now, that doesn't mean that you present necessarily all the numbers and say, this is it, this is how this property is going to look. But you want to encourage your investors to also run numbers and understand what they're buying. Over the years, I've had many investors come to me for property management, and I've had to sit down and look at their numbers and say, this property is not going to cash flow, and it never was. And that sometimes is a really rude awakening. And so we want to make sure that before they buy it, maybe they don't care if it cash flows, but we want to make sure they understand what they're buying before they buy it. So legal and regulatory challenges, that is an ever-moving target right now, because we're dealing with a lot of different regulations coming up, especially in the world of short-term rentals. Here in Minnesota, we have a lot of regulations coming in rentals overall, especially short-term rentals. We also have rent stabilization in St. Paul. And so these are all things that you need to stay up to date on. If you're, for instance, in my market, if I'm selling a rental property in St. Paul to an investor and they're going to rent out the property, I better make sure that they know ahead of time that there's rent stabilization in place in St. Paul. And this is the parameters from which they can raise their rents. So without understanding that, they could have a real problem when they purchase that property. So you need to keep up to date on what are the regulatory and legal concerns in a market for rentals, and be able to, I have a lot of clients that obviously have rentals, and yes, they keep throwing new rules and things, but they're all workable. It's just a matter of, okay, how do we work this one into our process? And so that's, again, where a good property manager can really help out. So another one is time management, or the commitment to managing a property. That's another concern that potential investors often have. They've got a full-time job, they've got families, they've got their own things going on. I don't want to have to run around collecting rents. I don't want to have to go over and fix leaky faucets. What happens if something happens in the middle of the night? I get that all the time. I don't want to call in the middle of the night. Um, Again, this is a matter of having a process set up. If you are going to self-manage, what is your process going to be? And do you really realistically have time to do this? I was talking to an investor recently, and he has, I think it was 6 properties that he's self-managing. And he said his wife was not happy with him because he's gone every weekend at the properties, and she wants him spending time with their family. And his other problem was, he said, I'd like to buy more properties, but I don't have time to manage any more properties. So I know what you know what I'm going to say. Why in the world wouldn't you hire a property manager to take all the headache off your plate and allow you to purchase more property, which in the long run is going to be much more advantageous financially than the little bit you might think you're saving on the property management end. So again, you want to have a realistic, if a tenant calls with an issue and says, hey, my sink is broken, realistically, can you be out there in the next day or two to fix that? And if the answer is no, not on a regular basis, you need to start thinking about, okay, who's my backup? What's my backup plan? Do I have a service I can call that can fix things? Do I need to hire a property manager? What is it that I'm going to do to commit to repairing or making these repairs for the tenants in a timely fashion so they're happy? And of course, market fluctuations, and we all know about that right now with everything going on. Interest rates, are they going to go up? Are they going to go down? Who knows? I've given up trying to figure that one out. Our value is going to continue to rise. Our interest rate's going to come down. We all get asked these questions. With investment property, if it's cash flowing and it's making you money every month, and assuming you don't have an adjustable rate mortgage that's going to adjust next month to some sky high rate, you should be able to ride out whatever's going on in the market. So that's what you want to look at. What is the long-term goal for this property, or in the short-term goal? And if the plan is, for instance, I'm going to hold these properties for 10 years till I retire, then some of the things that you might be concerned about in, say, the stock market maybe isn't that big of a concern anymore, because your goal is going to be to make sure that that property brings in enough money to hopefully cash flow, pay its bills. It's going to continue to appreciate. And that's really what you want to think about when you think of market fluctuations. Is there anything that's going to change that ability? So preventing property damage, that's another one. What if this happens, or what if that happens? Again, you're going to have insurance. My leases all require tenants to have renters insurance. You want to have a system in place where they understand, you just want to have a good open relationship with your tenants. If something breaks, let us know, we'll fix it. You can do an annual inspection and do a walkthrough on the property. But by and large, if you run a good background check and you've got people who've rented in the past and followed through on their obligations, things break. We all know that, and accidents happen. But really, if you stay on top of it and stay in communication with your tenants, usually you have a pretty good idea of what's going on. So property management can seem very complex, and there are a lot of moving parts to it. I think for most people, honestly, I don't recommend that you try to do it yourself, because I think it's going to be stressful. But there are a lot of people that say, I want to try it. And I say, great. I have clients that'll buy investment property with me. And then I say, if you have any issues while you're managing it, just call me. Usually sometime down the road, they end up hiring me to manage it for them because they realize they have other things they'd rather do. But, property management is something, just like with real estate, where you have to keep up on what are the latest rules and regulations and things like that. So The other thing that potential investors sometimes will say is, well, what about liquidity? I can't necessarily sell this. I can't get my money out of it whenever I want. I always manage properties as an investment, not as a rental. And what I mean by that is whenever I'm making a repair or an update or doing any work at the property, if we revert back to what is the goal for this property? And that's something that you might want to discuss with your clients ahead of time. What are your goals for this property? If the goal, for instance, is I want to sell this property in the next 2 years, and buy a apartment building or something, then when you're making those repairs and those updates, you want to do that in such a way that you're getting it ready to sell. Okay. So there's a difference between this is a forever rental and I'm never going to sell it. And, I want to be able to sell this property whenever the mood strikes me. And so with my clients being investors that they often will call me and say, you know what, I want to put this property on the market in the next, 3 months. What do you think about that? I want to be able to say, you know what, it's pretty much ready to go. We're coming in the spring. We do a little curb appeal outside and we're ready to roll because we've been planning this whole time what we're going to do. So again, if liquidity is an issue, you need to have a clear plan of what is your long-term and short-term plan for this property. And of course, stress and emotional burden. I was on the phone with a client this morning who was pretty stressed out and about one of his rentals, and he said, "Oh, I know I can sleep tonight because you're in charge of it." So I always recommend that as a realtor, you have vetted property managers in your market. You know some of them. You've been to some of their properties. You understand how they manage, and you can refer your clients to them. If the stress is too much, then they know that there's somebody they can call to bring in for help. So those are the common concerns that people have when I talk to them about, hey, have you ever thought about investing in real estate? Those are the common things that come up, you know. So we've kind of covered that. And so I would encourage you to start thinking about, okay, who are my investors? Who are my clients? Who's my sphere of influence? Who's on my farming list that I could call and have that conversation with? And do I have all my answers? Can I answer all these questions that may come up and make them feel comfortable? And when you're ready to do that, I would reach out and start talking to people because you'll be amazed. One of my biggest clients, and she has been for years, our kids went to school together, and I was picking up my daughter one day after school, and I said, hey, you know what? You should invest in real estate. And she said, I've always thought about doing that. And boom, she owns 17, 18 properties now in 5 years. So it's as simple as that. A lot of people dream about investing in real estate, but they have no idea where to start. So if you guys can get in there and start answering some of these questions they have, they will move forward. So let's assume now you've got a couple people that are ready to consider investing. They've said, okay, I'm comfortable. I'm gonna manage it this way. Let's move forward. What do you as a realtor need to do to work with real estate investors? So we all know how traditional buyers and sellers work, right? There's a lot of emotion. This is, typically they're looking for their primary resident where they're going to live, maybe with their family. They're interested in things like school districts and neighborhoods, or is it close to this, or is it close to that? This is a long-term investment. They're going to live there for a number of years. And can they afford it? Because they're paying all of it out of pocket. They're going to live in the house with their family, and they're going to pay for it. Investors are not like that at all. So just like a buyer for themselves will call you and say, I saw the cutest house. I want to go see it right away because it's just perfect. It's beautiful. Investors don't act like that. The first thing they want to see is, what are the finances on this property? What does this look like financially? If it looks like it might make sense financially, then I might want to take a look at it. Or I might have you go take a look at it because I don't even want to look at it until you've seen it. So you have to understand how to analyze investment property. That is the number one thing you have to be able to do. investors are going to be interested in not just single family homes to rent. They may be interested in multifamily, small apartments. I've got mixed use buildings. So you do have to start looking at what are the different investment opportunities in my market and how do they play out? You know, what does a duplex look like versus a single family home? And that way you can kind of gear your conversation towards what is this investor's goal, and based on their goals, what sounds like it might be the best route for them in terms of which property to purchase. So long-term, short-term goals, those are the important things to understand. And then obviously the specifics on the ROI, and we're going to get into that here in a little bit. So you want to adapt your approach for investors. You know, you're not going to send out you know, cute pictures of houses and say this one has the cutest kitchen I've ever seen, or the, you know, best yard I've ever seen. What investors are looking for is the numbers. You've got to be a data-driven agent. You've got to be able to prove that if you buy this property and you do this with it, this is going to happen. And the reason I know that is because here's 3 other comps that it happened with. Okay. So here's what investors are looking for in realtors. And I'll tell you, savvy investors can pick out realtors that know what they're talking about almost instantly. So you need to do some education if you don't have all of this. And it's not hard to do. I mean, now we've got everything online. You know, you can find classes everywhere for this. You need to have some specific expertise in your market on investment. Okay, what's out there? What does it look like? What are the rules? What are the regulations? That type of thing. You want to, again, once you know their goals, be able to put together a strategic plan for them. So if I'm going to retire in 10 years and I want to buy some properties and have them paid off, what does that actually look like? Okay. How is that going to happen? And then you want to have some experience with investment properties. Now, you know, I was looking at this when I was putting this together, and I'm like, well, this is the old catch-22. If I don't have experience, how am I supposed to get something that needs experience? There's plenty of other agents that work with investment property, and, you know, start talking to them. Start taking whatever continuing ed classes you can find. There are RIA groups. There are meetups. There are all kinds of I get invited to like meetups almost every day for investors. There are Facebook groups. These are all places where you can join. Many of them are online, so you don't have to even leave your office or your house or whatever, and you can start learning what is going on in the market. What are people thinking about? What is strategies people are using? And start paying attention to that. That's experience too. And then the analytical skills. And again, we're going to go through some of that, and I'm going to help you with some of the financial analyzing of the properties here in a minute. So you want to have good communication, good negotiation skills, obviously, in customized service. Now, the difference between investment property and I'm going to call it owner-occupied property, especially in multi-offer situations, is, you know, when owner-occupieds are making an offer on their dream home, they'll overpay if they want in order to get what they want. But there is a number with investment property where the property just doesn't make sense. And so you need to be able to understand that if there's multiple offers coming in on let's say a duplex, what is the highest rate that price we can really go in at that makes sense? Because at some point that property is not going to make sense financially anymore. So you need to understand that when you're negotiating, and you have to be able to walk away from some of those deals. I had to do it many times where in these multiple offer situations, the price gets too high and now the property doesn't work anymore. So as a realtor, you want to have your network set up for these investors. So who can you refer them to for property management, Do you have any contractors if they want to do any work on properties? Do you have legal professionals? Do you have tax professionals? Who are some people that you can have that you can refer some of these investors to if they have specific questions that you're not able to answer? Um, of course, communication is essential, and we all are all over tech. I mean, I know tech is a big thing. There is a lot more tech coming out. AI is really, I think, going to do a number on a lot of the tech that we have because it's being incorporated into it. So it's just going to get better and better, but you have to stay up with it. Again, we talked about local regulations. You also want to have some tax expertise. Now, I'm not saying you should give any tax advice. I'm saying that you need to have some people in your Rolodex that you can refer them to, maybe a CPA or somebody like that who has experience with rental property, if that's what they're doing, and how that works, and make sure they understand the tax implications. If they're going to flip properties, for instance, they're going to buy, rehab it, and sell it in a year, they need to understand ahead of time what the tax implications look like. So again, with real estate investors as agents, you want to start working on some of these skills. And it's not as hard as you think. I think people get sometimes, feel like it's too much, and it's not really. You just have to dig in and start doing it. I would encourage you to start looking at investment property yourself, even if you don't necessarily have a client for it. Just start going out, running numbers on duplexes, for instance, or single family homes. Hey, this one looks like it's going to make some money. Maybe go take a look at it if it's on the market. Just start getting a feel for what it looks like as an investment so that when you do have a couple of investors in your pocket, you're ready to go and you can talk the talk. So I'm going to show you a trick that it's not really a trick, but I did this back in 2010 when things weren't selling. If you guys remember, some of you that have been around long enough. And we had a lot of houses up here in Minnesota that were vacant and not selling. So we had to get creative. And so I'm saying, how do you turn handcuffed homeowners into real estate investors? I presented this a few weeks ago or so to a mortgage friend of mine down in Florida. He had a bunch of realtors come on a call, and I did just a 15-minute thing. I presented this on a Tuesday, and he had a second call set up on Thursday, different set of realtors, and I got on to present the exact same thing, and he said, "Wait a minute, watch this, because a couple of the agents that watched this on Tuesday have already tried this, and I have deals on my desk from it." So it does work. And I've done it. So right now, 82% of homeowners feel like they're locked in by their low interest rate mortgage. So they bought a house a while back. Their interest rate is, I don't know, 3%, let's say. And they don't want to sell. They want to move for whatever reason, but they're looking at a 7% mortgage. They're not super excited about that. So they sort of feel stuck. I don't want to lose this great mortgage I have, but this isn't exactly where I want to be right now. 99% of borrowers have a mortgage rate right now under 6%, which means almost every buyer is going to be paying more if they're taking out a mortgage. 28% of mortgage holders right now have a rate under 3%. That is a lot of people. And so I just put a simple example. I know you guys can run these numbers yourselves, but the difference on 400,000 between 3% and 7% is $975. And that's just principal and interest a month. So what do? You've got people that are want to move, but they've got this house and they're not sure what to do. So I want to show you a trick that if you can explain this correctly, you're going to be able to free up some of those folks. So I want to introduce you to the unexpected landlord. And who are they? They are people who own a home with a super low interest rate, whatever they deem that to be. They want to move, but they love the interest rate they have, and they aren't super excited about paying so much more in interest. Um, I'm going to give you my Wealth Stream Analyzer spreadsheet. I know I've passed that out in the past, but it's a great tool. You can use it if you don't have a spreadsheet to analyze property. And so you can use this tool to take their existing home and find out if it would make a good rental. So they're living in their house. They find out, oh, I can make some money if I rent out my current home. And that could in turn give me some of the extra money that I would be losing with the higher interest rate, and I can apply that there. So they keep the existing property as a rental with their great interest rate, and they buy a new home. So let me show you a real example. I have a client. She bought in 2020 for about 274. There's her interest rate, her current payment. She put 20% down. I analyzed it and said, I can rent your home that you're living in for $23.50 a month. Okay. So that's a 8.1 cap rate for her and a 20% return on her cash. So a 20% return on her down payment. So she's making almost $1,000 a month on this if she rents out her house. Now, she takes that same cash flow, that $1,000. She wants to buy a house that's around 425. Her interest rate at the time was going to be 6.75. It might actually even be higher now. Her new PITI would be 2530. So that means her additional payment is going to be 1266. But remember, she's got cash flow of almost $1,000 a month from her rental home. So now she's getting into her new home for an additional $278 out of pocket. That's a real life example. Okay, so I'm going to show you quickly how to use this spreadsheet, and then I'm going to give you a link so you can download it if you want it. So this is just a sample property from our MLS here in Minnesota. Nothing special, I just picked it. So you'll see the price here and the bedrooms and bathrooms here. So the spreadsheet's going to have two tabs. The first tab, you're just going to input all this basic information, and you can do it very, very quickly. The price, the taxes, which of course you'll get off the MLS. You can estimate for insurance. And then you're going to need to go online. You can go onto Zillow. You can go on, there's all kinds of rental tools where you can look up rental rates for properties. Think of it as a market analysis. If you're trying to price out a home, you're going to look at similar homes in the area and figure out what the value of the home is. You're going to do the same kind of thing for rentals. Okay, what if 5-bedroom, 2-bath homes in this neighborhood or this area rent for? Okay, so in this case, I found $27.95 seemed pretty reasonable. And if a buyer put down 20% and their interest rate's at 7%, you can fill all this information in depending on what your client's situation is. Maybe they're not putting 20% down. Maybe they're putting 30% or they're putting 5%, whatever that is. Okay. The second page of the spreadsheet, and I blew this up. So this is the top half of what you'll see. This is just all the basic information about what we put in: the price, the down payment. This is the PI. This is the depreciation schedule. You can add in expenses here. So if this particular house, for instance, the owner says, I'm going to pay all the water at this house, you can budget that in here. And it's going to give you your total expenses, $51.72. And this is the bottom half of the spreadsheet that you'll get. Again, I blew it up so you could see it better. But these are the numbers right here that investors are looking for. What's my cash flow? $8,500 annually. I'm going to reduce my principal. Okay, so there's more than just cash flow you want to consider. You also have a tenant paying down your loan. They're paying down your principal. You have the potential tax savings. Okay, because of the depreciation, just because you're making money doesn't mean it's all taxable. Okay. I've got appreciation at only 3% right now. So that still raises the value 8,700 a year, the first year. So again, your value's gone up, you've paid down your mortgage, and you've got cash flow coming in. So these are what investors are always talking about. What is the cap rate? It's 9.3. That's a great cap rate. What is the cash on cash return? So what is the return on my down payment? It's almost 15%. So think of it this way. If you took that 20% down payment and you put it in the stock market or wherever, are you going to beat 14.7%? I wouldn't. I don't know how I couldn't figure that out on the stock market if I tried. So I know I went through a lot of information really fast, but again, I'm always happy to field calls or emails. This is a QR code. You can download that spreadsheet I just showed you, and you can have it. And you can tweak it however you want. You should be able to pull it into Google Docs or Excel. And it's a great tool. And it's good to learn how to analyze. Once we get my software up and running and it's on a national level, yeah, we might be able to make it a lot faster for you, but it's kind of like when you're a kid and you're learning math. You want to learn it the hard way first and then get out the calculator. So, I think it's important as realtors working with investors that you truly understand the numbers. And by using this spreadsheet, you will start to understand them a lot better. So I have one more slide. That's got all my contact information if anybody wants to reach out to me. And it's the same QR code, so you can download that spreadsheet. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I hope I didn't go too fast, Cari. That was a lot of information.
No, that was super good. I was just screenshotting and getting your QR code and downloading the information myself. So really,
Sure.
really good stuff. Here's the thing that I just keep hearing is, when we're talking to agents all over the country, it's always, finding people that need to move. And there are people that are, to your point, well, I don't know if it's a good time. I want to, but I don't need to. And so should I? But there's a lot of people in the database. If people have been in the business for a while, or even if they haven't, but they just have a good database, is if we know how to bring these ideas forth, people will think about things they wouldn't think about on their own. And that's our job. It's not convincing anybody, but it's sharing options and opportunities that they maybe just didn't even know was possible for them. So if we can have more conversations with more people in our community, in our following, or in our database, lo and behold, we're going to have more transactions. But I think that the market changes, we should be very good and confident in our ability to work with investors anyways. And so being educated in this is really important, in my opinion, and having tools like this. So there'll be more to come from you, Maureen, on your technology, I know. So we're going to keep everybody posted. Maybe as we get to a place where we know you're going to be bringing that forth, we'll have you come back on, maybe do a little training, maybe a little demo or something like that, so you can bring it to the group. We do have 9,500 agents in here that look at a lot of our trainings and our live streams. And then just as a reminder, you guys, this is live streamed in eXp Family Tree. There's a lot of you watching there, so again, thank you for that. And it will stay there forever, but we will also have this up on YouTube. Take a screenshot here of Maureen's information. I'll also go ahead and post that below so that you guys can see it in the live stream too. So thanks for being here, Maureen. Really, really good information. As Chrissy shared in the group chat, you are a very good teacher. It makes it a lot more clear. And I think it's important that we hear this stuff over and over again. The more we hear it, the more we understand it. So
yeah, absolutely.
Here.
Feel free to reach out, Chrissy or Angie or anybody that's got any questions. I'm happy to go through this again or explain things at a deeper level if somebody needs it.
Awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I bring you up often as I'm talking to people, so I will definitely get your information out there.
Okay, great. Thanks, Angie.
All right, you guys, thank you again. Thanks, Maureen. I'm excited to see the technology. I'll make a couple intros as well. So it's
Great.
exciting. We're getting closer.
Yeah, we
Thanks
are.
everybody for being here. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next Wednesday.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys.